We are here where there are dinosaurs on the ark, is where we were last week. And we say there is evidence that dinosaurs lived after the flood. And what are the two evidences we have studied? I've never had it this quiet. Archaeologists and historians find drawings, it should have said, of dinosaurs in caves. And so those would have been drawn after the flood. And they would have had to have seen dinosaurs to be able to reconstruct them as drawings. Secondly, we find drawings of dinosaurs on burial stones in Central and South America. I showed you those pictures of those. Again, they were drawn by people, carved by people, engraved by people who saw them. Now, this one, I think you children, you younger people, are going to find very interesting. We find sculptures of dinosaurs all over the world. I want to show you several pictures. These all come off of the internet. And so if you just Google sculptures of dinosaurs, you might see them. Carvings of dinosaurs made by people who must have lived with them around Acamaro, Mexico. Because how could you make a model of a dinosaur without seeing it, without knowing it? So I just have several pictures of these. And I don't know, did children play with them? Instead of a farm set, you had a dinosaur set? But these are amazing. We find them, I think that's a similar picture, my apology. That's a pretty good one, right? They have had to have seen a dinosaur. Here's another one. There are more of them. That's a website, www.bible.ca. You can find them. I just find these amazing. They're from Mexico area, around, the Aztec time. When did they make these? I don't know. Here is an artifact of Tiwanaku, an important pre-Columbian archaeological site in Bolivia. Pre-Columbian means before Columbus. What year did Columbus discover America? Joshua.
At least.
It rhymes with ocean blue. You remember that? And everybody said 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. So these were made prior to 1492, we believe. Tiwanaku is recognized by Andean scholars as one of the most important precursors to the Inca Empire. That simply means there were people living in the area of the Andes Mountains prior to the Inca Empire. The sculptor, the person who sculpted this, depicted a dinosaur-like creature at least 800 years before European scientists discovered dinosaurs. That's interesting. They lived in South America. Kendon.
Wouldn't Europeans have already found dinosaurs, like they've already known them?
Well, you know what, Kendon? I really like your question. The dinosaur bones that we are familiar with were discovered until the mid-1800s. They're a rather recent thing, and the church did not know what to do with those dinosaur bones. Really. What do we say? Were there these kinds of creatures? And they were associated with evolution, and still today, people associate dinosaurs with evolution. Never do that. You associate that with Scripture. They are God's creatures. They were created. They were on the ark because we're just finding all the evidence that they were seen after the flood. Thank you, Kendon. I appreciate your comment. Some of the beautiful French chateaus built at the close of the Middle Ages and early 1500s have dramatic dragon illustrations carved into their walls, ceilings, and furniture. So you see this dragon. Here's his head. Here he is. Do you think they maybe had seen dragons? We read the book of Job last week. Fire comes out of their nostrils. Their breath sets coals of fire. Dragons are not mythical characters. They were actually part of the creation. Some of the beautiful, same thing here. They're just showing that you have dinosaurs carved into the walls, carved into the furniture of the French chateaus, early 1500s. That's 500 years ago. They were aware of dinosaurs before we found the bones. Here again is some more of that kind of thing. They were seen, and they were impressed with them, and they carved them and enjoyed them. This is one of the great temples near Siem Reap. If you get to the orphanage, in a half hour you can be at this temple. This is a Buddhist temple, and it's no longer used, but it is a massive structure, and I visited it with David. And this temple, built about 1,000 years ago, the magnificent jungle temples of Cambodia were built by the Khmer from the 8th through the 14th century A.D. So 700s to the 1300s. So I just say they're about 1,000 years old. You see how that tree is growing all over the top of that wall. It is an impressive place. Deep in the jungles of Cambodia are ornate temples and palaces from the Khmer civilization. One such temple, Ha Prom, abounds with stone statues and reliefs. You see the dinosaur. It is carved. There, I've got a close-up picture of this. Western science only began assembling dinosaur skeletons in the past 2 centuries. They were seen here 1,000 years ago. That's David. And David is standing next to this relief of a dinosaur. Kendon.
You know what I find fascinating is the wall. They have different dinosaurs. Well, most people today, we just assume one kind of dinosaur would be on the wall.
Yeah, I like what you just said. And maybe this is the only kind of dinosaur that they knew about. But we have many different kinds. But dinosaurs evidently were living in Cambodia at the time this temple was built. That's a close-up that I took of that because I just found this really, really informative. The dinosaurs, were they on the ark? They had to be on the ark. They did not die off 63 million years ago. Man and dinosaur lived together. I think this is the evidence. There is evidence that dinosaurs lived after the flood. We have stories and folklore about dinosaurs from different countries around the world. Some of these stories are recent. I want to share some of them with you. You all recognize Africa. This story comes from the Congo, And I just have to show you where Ghana is, where Benjamin's family lives. That's where you are. Did you ever get to the Congo?
No.
Never got to the Congo. But here is the story, and I warned Benjamin, I says, I might have you read. Do you know how to pronounce the name of that dinosaur?
Where is it?
Can you see it? It's maybe too small. Is it too small for all of you?
No.
Anyway, I will slaughter his name, but I would call it Makali. Membe lives in the Congo River Basin, eats vegetation, but is extremely dangerous because of its territorial tendencies. You know, some animals are territorial. This is mine, and don't you get in here. It will attack humans if they come too close, and is known to kill hippos if they invade its territory. Despite numerous expeditions to locate the creature dating back over 200 years, it has yet to be officially documented by science. So this is folklore. Tim Croy, do you remember around Dune, there's always that folklore about a lion of some sort lives there, right? A mountain lion?
I don't know.
Oh, when I was in Rock Valley, every once in a while somebody had sighted this creature. But it was just a folklore to keep going, is what we think. And maybe this is what this is about, too. Witnesses describe this dinosaur as having a large, heavy body like an elephant, but with a very long neck and tail. To some researchers, this sounds like a sauropod dinosaur. But it's a story. Joe?
Is there any evidence in the U.S.?
In the U.S.?
Yes.
Not that I know of, other than we're going to get into the recent bones of dinosaurs that we have gelatinous material. But I don't know of any dinosaur sightings or stories in the U.S. Thank you.
Do you know about the one out west?
Say it again,
Do you
Joel.
know about the one out west?
No.
I don't remember the year exactly, but it was like 1880s or somewhere around there. That people were, going out west and exploring it more, and they found a large creature that was moving around that they didn't recognize at all. And of course, they shot it and killed it. But they said it was described like a dinosaur, and they sent parts of it to labs out east, but beyond that, it didn't surface again.
I really appreciate you telling us that, Joel. I think scientists really don't want to find any dinosaurs. Because it's going to, their whole philosophy is going to collapse with that. Thank you. Thank you, Joel. And so we think they probably saw something like this, if they saw it. Here is another one. Can you see it, Benjamin?
Yes, I can see.
Can you pronounce it?
Mbielu. Is that one?
Okay, everybody, all together. This fearsome creature is found in the Republic of Congo, in the, how do you say that?
Mbielu.
Witnesses say is a herbivore. Who knows what an herbivore is?
Eats plants.
Joshua.
Eat plants.
They eat plants with large jagged planks on its back. That's what they see. Okay, I need you again, Benjamin.
Nguma monene.
Is another strange creature from the Congo region. It is described as a huge lizard with a ridge on its back, with a low stance, means got short legs, and a body as long as 30 feet. It's tough to match this description to any known animal. We can't compare it to some animal that we know. Benjamin?
Emela Ntuaka.
Another legendary living dinosaur is this one, known to the pygmy tribes. Who knows what the pygmy tribes are? Pygmies?
It
Ken?
says killer of elephants.
Kaden.
Are they the really short people that live
They're
in
the
Africa?
really short people. You should really go over there and spend some time with them. Pygmy tribes in Central Africa. With the name means killer of elephants. This is a formidable beast. That means very dangerous beast that the pygmies give a wide berth. That means the pygmies don't get near this animal. It is said to be an aquatic creature. Aquatic means lives in the water, comparable in size and stature to a rhinoceros. Then we're going to go to Cameroon. And I didn't take away the Ghana circle. But did you ever get to Cameroon?
No.
Okay. Benjamin
Ngubu.
is said to live in the savanna region of Cameroon. What is a savanna?
Large grassy plain.
Large grassy plain, maybe a few trees. It's described as a smaller version of a rhinoceros with multiple horns and a frill around its neck. It also has a violent temper and will charge anything that comes near, including African elephants. These are stories. And you all know Loch Ness. And that's just an interesting thing. There are pictures of him. He's called, or she, whoever it is Nessie. That's what the name goes. But no one has really ever been able to take a clear picture of Nessie. And so it's suspected that it is folklore, is what it is. But it's probably the story most of us are the most familiar with. Scientists have recently found soft, flexible blood tissue in dinosaur bones. You have seen these pictures earlier, but I want to remind you, and some of you have joined our class since that time, this is a Tyrannosaurus rex, what we think they look like. Remember, no one has ever seen a dinosaur in our day and age. These are the tissue that have come from a Tyrannosaurus rex femur. They're shown in photo A to be flexible and resilient, which means you can pull them and they will go back like a rubber band. So this gives us the idea that these tissue fragments are not millions of years old. They have to be recent. When stretched, they return to their original shape. Photo B shows the tissue after it has been air dried. Photo C shows regions of bone having fibrous character. Dinosaur meat. Maybe we could make dinosaur pizza if we could get enough there. And we normally don't see that in fossil bone. The bone does not deteriorate, but to have the meat, the tissue,
would that be considered a fully fossilized bone then? Because generally a fully fossilized bone is one where minerals have come and replaced all of the elements of bone, right?
Did you all hear what he asked? Is this a fully fossilized bone? My answer is that cannot be considered fully fossilized because you still have tissue that is flexible and resilient. Thank you for your question. This is looking at it under a microscope, which is probably not as helpful as just seeing the actual thing. But this tissue has not been, the animal that it belonged to has not been dead for a long period of time. Maybe it's the one you were talking about, Joel. This was found, I think, in 2008 is when this bone was found. That ends the dinosaur thing. If anybody has a question or comment, you're welcome to give it. Here's a question that you'll find on the internet. How could Noah have rounded up all the wild animals? And if you read the scripture, how many days did Noah have to get them all rounded up?
Over 100.
Little less. 7. 7 days. Now, here's the picture they will show you. And they want to say that the ark is in Mount Ararat. So the ark is over here. And when you read more of their description, they said, how could he get down to Africa? How could he pick up a lion? And he couldn't put a zebra with it. He'd have to make 2 trips. Did he have a Learjet? And he had to find a male and a female. And then he had to go back and get the zebras. And then he had to get giraffes. And he had to get to Australia to get the kangaroo. And South America to get the llamas, and he had to get the bears out of North America. I think that's a really good question. What's the answer?
God brought them.
God brought them. I'll show you that verse. Noah never had to lasso an animal and drag it to the ark. They came. Now, how about kangaroos? And how about African animals? How about South American, North American animals? How did they get to the ark? Question they're going to ask her. Caden.
They were all, before the flood, the earth would have been a different climate, so they all could have been living within the area where Noah built the ark.
He says they all could have been living in that area because the climate was different. Darren, do you have some wisdom on this?
Well, I think all the continents were together before the flood.
I didn't hear you well. That's my fault.
All the continents were connected before the flood.
Nikki, were you going to
I was
say?
going to say one landmass before
Yeah.
the flood.
I think this is another evidence that there was one landmass prior to the flood. And I want to go along with Caden as well. I don't think animals had to come, to 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 miles to get to the ark. They were probably, the kinds of animals were rather evenly distributed through. And so it's very important that you and I can give a reason for the hope that is in us, that we believe Genesis. And this is why we believe it, because this is how it may have happened. Because you're going to need to stand on your feet and defend it more and more and more. This is Genesis 9. 1-3, and God blessed Noah and his sons, and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, And upon every bird of the heavens, upon everything that creeps on the ground, and all the fish of the sea, into your hand they are delivered. Look at verse 2. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast. That happens after the flood. After the flood. There seems to have been a relationship of fearlessness. Kindred.
I have to say one thing. It could have been, there didn't have to be one continent, because if you had the big cats, and because there's big cats in like every continent, some could just walk to the ark, and there's like bears, other animals like that.
I like your answer. I think you speak very truthfully. This continues. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. And as I gave you the green plants, I give you everything. The fear of man was placed in the animals to protect the animals, because we were going to start eating them. And I don't think that was a suggestion. I think it was a command. I don't think vegetarians celebrate the gifts of God. I don't, and killing an animal is a picture of Christ. They lay their life down for our life. Your life for mine. And so here's an artist's conception. These animals are not trying to run away from man. God brings them, and whether they were this patient to get on the ark, I don't know. They could have been like kids trying to get on a school bus or something. Anything wrong with this picture?
There's a lot of sheep.
There's no top to it.
There's no dinosaurs.
No dinosaurs, are there?
There's no roof.
We got cheetahs, we've got lions. I don't think there was cheetahs and lions on the ark. I think there was one cat. Genetics says that as time went by,
There's too many.
for example, go for dogs. The wolf was supposed to be the mother of all dogs, right? I don't think he had German Shepherds, Labradors, Dalmatians. I think he had a wolf on the ark. I don't think he had every breed in the world.
I agree with you 100%. There had been 2 cats on the ark. And all the cats that we have today, and this is going to be in our next lesson, come from those 2 cats. All the information for them is there. And so you got all these reindeer and other kinds of animals. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Of the birds after their kind, this is Genesis 6:20, of the birds after their kind, of animals after their kind, and of every creeping thing of the earth after its kind, 2 of every kind will come to you. Why would they come?
Because God said.
God's will. That same word that God created in Genesis chapter 1, that He created with, is the same word that He says they will come to you. And you will keep them alive. Or to keep them alive. Noah didn't have to search or travel to faraway places to bring the animals on board. And he didn't have to worry, well, did I miss a kind? God brought them. And here's something that I think is really significant. The concept of God choosing or God electing. He chose the 2 cats. He chose the dogs. He chose every animal that came on the ark. Just like He chose you and me to be His children. And He chose Noah. And He chose Mrs. Noah. And their 3 sons and their wives. This is a real example of election. God did not place the fear of man in the animals until immediately after the flood. So Noah doesn't have to sneak around and try to trap them. They all come. And in 7 days, they're all there, and they're on the ark because God had chosen them, and God is saving them. The fear of you and dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every bird of the heavens, upon everything that creeps on the ground, and all the fish of the sea. The wild animals, boys and girls, that you see today are not in their natural state. Their natural state is they have no fear of man. And you could go up and pet a lion. And I don't know whether Adam ever, hugged a dinosaur and, instead of going to Adventureland, you could just ride all the way up there. Just think about that. There was no fear of man toward the animal, and there was no fear of the animal toward man, because when Eve meets the serpent, she isn't screaming. There's this relationship is just typical. There seems to be some kind of speech between the animal world and the human world. And we sort of sense that today. Who was I talking to just the other day? And they said, our dog just really kind of understands us. And you understand the dog, too, right? Here is another question. How could just 8 people take care of a few thousand animals for over a year? They were on the ark for about a year and a month. 8 people. Thousands of animals. That is another excellent question. You guys that used to farm. Nobody here has animals anymore, right? You do, Ben. How many cattle do you have?
Oh, about 100.
About 100? You can take care of them by yourself?
Not always.
Not always. You need a good wife, right? Or daughter. This question is based on that. How can 8 people, you're going to believe the story of the flood when 8 people are feeding and taking care of thousands of animals on a boat for a year and a half, 24/7. Ben.
How do we know it's thousands?
How do we know it's 1,000? I like your question. We believe that because of the number of kinds of animals that we have. And we think there would have to be a few thousand animals. Because you're talking about birds, you're talking about reptiles, you're talking about amphibians, probably, and talking about the mammals. And they've got to be fed, and they've got to be watered. And you've got to clean the pens, right? Any ideas? Joe?
I always wondered if some of them might have gone into a hibernation state.
Maybe they went into a hibernation state. You have a lot of people that would agree with you. There is that thinking that God put the animals into a hibernated state so that they were not active and their care would be minimal. That's one answer. It doesn't have biblical support. Henry.
With God in control and command, maybe the animals didn't need all the food that we normally think of today, or the cleaning up afterwards. Maybe God knew that miraculously just wasn't needed.
With God in control, they didn't need as all the food that normally do, and the cleaning up afterwards. There was a way that he did that. Thank you, Henry. Whoa.
They were young animals, they weren't full grown yet, they were small, they didn't full grown.
That's a very significant thing. They were not mature. But any of you have kids, you know kids eat more than you do, right? But in the animal world, the younger animals, some of these would have been very, very young. Remember, they were to reach puberty by the end of the flood. They had a year and a month to reach puberty. And so I like that comment, Lowell. I think it's valid as well.
I like, at the Ark Encounter, they depicted it as having like troughs and, kind of rock walkways above the pens that you could easily do a wheelbarrow and just drop into troughs that you can easily go to multiple pens like farmers do now. Also, I have slotted grates underneath particular grates, just automatically added up into the ocean. Everything else was there anyway.
I really appreciate you. We know farmers don't work that hard today, right? With the automated feeding system. Yeah. I apologize, Benjamin. That was a joke. Kelly.
Since we have the pictures of like the elephants helping build the ark, could some of the animals have helped, pass out? Were some of them maybe trained to help deliver some of the food needed to the different animals?
I have never thought of that, but I appreciate it. Callie suggested maybe there were animals that were trained. If you had monkeys on the ark, I know monkeys can be trained to do a lot of stuff. Mr. Kendon.
Oh, I would like to add that people then were a lot intelligent than we are now, so they could do stuff that we can't even imagine. Like they could build things that we probably don't even know of.
You are right. They had an intelligence which we no longer have as great as theirs was. And so maybe they made invention. All of your answers are excellent. How did Noah know how to care for all the kinds of animals on the ark? That's one of the questions related to this question 11. What knowledge did he have of animal husbandry? And so, before we've talked about that, the tradition says Noah was a farmer. Noah was a ranchman. Noah owned livestock. That's very, very possible. So he was familiar with them. But I have here a bunch of drawings that I pulled off of the internet. These did not come from Answers in Genesis. They were just found on the internet, found them. What I like about this one is this dinosaur. The only problem I have, these are all pretty large animals. And I agree with Lowell that they would not have been that big. That's a pretty interesting picture. But we have the same problem. These are all adult animals. They would not have been that size. Here's another picture. These animals look a little younger, but they still appear to me to be larger than they would have been when they entered the ark. But they're showing the walkways, and you just walk past and give them some feed, as Joel was saying. And then the monkeys interrupt you for a bit. Here's another way that some artists believed, they were in cages, and they had slatted floors, and all the waste would have dropped down, and then you have your wife come along and clean it up.
So you showed this a few weeks ago, and my thought was this is the week before they got off the ark, and this is just the rabbitry. Because 2 rabbits in a year's time would have turned into hundreds.
So the rabbit cage had to be large.
Well, did he keep them separate?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because it's like
I love teaching
It's
you.
like 30-day gestation and 4 months to reach puberty.
So maybe
Too low now.
the rabbits had a room, right? Would Noah have bathed the elephants? If you got a zoo, it takes a lot of workers in a zoo. Those elephants have to be bathed. Did Noah have to bathe elephants? Nobody dares to say too much about
I'm gonna say no for this reason. Elephants in the wild don't get bathed. They just kind of cover themselves in dust. Probably get rained on every once in a while.
Everybody happy with Caden? Twyla?
I don't think he had a water supply to bathe anything, including himself. I think the water was there for drinking.
You know, the question that we have no information on is how did they collect water? Were there eaves, gutters up there, and then the water, fresh water
They were
came?
floating an awful lot of it.
Say that again.
They were floating in an awful lot of water. All they did was a pump.
Water everywhere, but not a drop to drink is what it is. Yeah. Now, we don't believe that Noah had to bathe the elephants. Is this how you would feed the giraffes? Not one at a time. At a zoo, you do that to entertain the kids that are there, and everybody just, oh my, look at that. But he would not have done that. You wouldn't feed them that way. And would he have fed the cow kind this way? Or the rhino kind this way? Or fed the penguins this way? Those ideas can come to our mind, but we don't think so. And Joel kind of stole my thunder. Could he have used self-feeders like this for the birds and other small animals? And so you don't fill it up every day. You fill it up maybe once a week, whatever. Could he have had self-feeders, something like this? And the cows eat, the cow kind eat there. And you have the pig kind. Could they have had a self-feeder? And here is the sheep kind right here. Could that have worked? Or feeding elephants this way. So that daily feeding of them would not be necessary. And here, this giraffe, you just fill that every once in a while. Isn't that an amazing way to feed an elephant? It's an elephant feeder. And could he have used these? And these? And something like this? Like that? So, the idea is that Noah was not running a zoo. The only reason those animals were on the ark to survive. He was not presenting specimens of the most beautiful animal at all. Would have not been there. The ark was temporary, emergency, short-term care, not long-term care as required in a zoo. Animal comfort and appearance were not the main objective. It was survival. All animals had a common diet. Remember that. Grasses, seeds, fruits. Noah had to preserve it all, but all the different kinds of animals would have been eating similar food. And so you wouldn't need separate feed for different animals. Every beast of the earth and every bird of the heavens and everything that creeps on the ground, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food. That helps a lot also. That these animals didn't have these special diets like we do today. Noah probably stored the food and water near each animal. He doesn't have, you go upstairs and get this food. And so we have this wonderful little saying, don't work harder, work smarter. How can we do this as easily as possible? Drinking water could have been piped into troughs, similar to the way the Chinese have been using bamboo pipes to transport water for thousands of years. Could he have done something like this? And the water, and I'm still at a loss where that came from. I want to suggest it maybe came from the down, from gutters, but the way that ark tilted and all of that stuff, I don't have an answer for that. Noah may have used self-feeders for the birds, many other kinds of animals, as we have seen here. And then about animal waste, but we are at 6 o'clock, which is 7 o'clock at the moment. May we take it up here next week. I really enjoy teaching you. I really am encouraged and strengthened by your presence. Thank you. Joshua, we're going to pray a little bit, and then we're going to go. Our Father, we thank you. You give us so many blessings as we study and attempt to explain how we know dinosaurs were on the ark and how you give the ability to aid people to care for animals. May you bless what we have listened to, what we've taught. And we thank you that we can meet together, and we look forward to continuing with your blessing. In Jesus' name, amen.